Hello and welcome back to
Raw.
Raw with Amy and
Rachel.
Awesome. So we're so happy to have you back. Today's topic is the weight of mental load. This could be feel quite heavy for women. So we want to really break this down and dissect a few components of mental load. So first I want to start off with a definition so that we're all on the same page about what is mental load. So mental load is the invisible work of remembering, planning, anticipating, and worrying, even when no one sees it. So for women, this can feel very exhausting when it comes to tasks that are shared because women often feel like, oh, I need to do everything. Right. And then there's so much resentment that can build up into this and it can become heavier and heavier. So today we're going to run through three main areas. So you're going to walk away understanding why this happens, how it affects relationships, and third, practical ways to rebalance load and find that better balance in life. So first we'll start off with, why do women feel like carrying everything? Why do we?
I think there's just human nature of personalities and who we are. And, I listen to, it is both men and women. I think we can include men in this, especially those who are divorced or widowed or what have you, right? They also carry the mental load. But you're right, primarily women do. And I hear it all the time in my practice where it's like, I'm just exhausted. I feel I have to. So I think it's that I feel I have to that carries and rings true. And that comes from societal, familial, religious, underpinnings and teachings, and just the function of how we are natural caregivers.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. And like, oh, I can take on more. I can handle it. And like feeling that it's almost like that heaviness of the mental load becomes your normal and you learn how to function with that weight on your shoulders, thinking like this is the way it's supposed to be, but really it doesn't. And I can speak for myself. Like I haven't always been a great delegator. So I'm like, oh, I'll do it. And then I reach that point of burnout. And then I'm just like, I'm done.
Sure.
Right.
Well, that's a function of, not knowing how to say no and also not having proper boundaries put in place. And that's a whole other topic of conversation of, how do we say no and how, like, where do our boundaries start and end? And so I
Yes.
think that's a really important piece. But, when we talk about the definition of mental load, right? I think it encompasses so many things, but primarily it's those invisible things that, people don't realize that we do and we carry, like, the worry, the planning, the retrieving, the just even the overthinking.
Yeah. Remembering appointments for yourself, for your children, for your partners, right? Permission slips, snacks, pickup times, drop off times, birthday party RSVPs. Like I'm thinking about, just being a mom, right? And just we become these default problem solvers, which can add a lot of that mental load because it's like your mind is just constantly going like a hamster.
And that's emotional labor at best, right? When we talk about what it is, it is. It's emotional labor and it's, cognitive labor that is ongoing, and we ruminate over it and we sit in it and we wonder and we plan and we think. And so it can be exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you think that girls are like we're taught to be more responsible and organized and like emotionally aware, and that like boys can often be taught to just help women instead of like own it the way that women kind of own these sorts of tasks and responsibilities and that heaviness of the mental load?
It's a bit of a loaded question, Aim, to be honest. I think, literature will point that women are natural caregivers and the way the brain functions might be a little different than men. Like, if we talk about the way the brain functions between the gender differences specifically, women are like balls of yarn, right? So it's all encompassing. If you think about a ball of yarn, it's all intertwined, right? So it's like, I got to get the groceries. I got to take the kid to the dentist. I got to make dinner. I have to, go and do my work, or, think about a child's school project where if, there's a lot of literature and academic studies that point to men are better at compartmentalization. So they have compartments for everything, right? So the mental load is a little different, where they pull out their work compartment and then they push it away and then they don't think about it, right? And
Yeah.
they pull out, their relationship compartment and then they don't think about it, they put it back. So it's a function of the brain. So women are constantly, thinking and analyzing and doing, where men are sort of very task specific, right? So
Yeah.
their
What
mental
makes me
capacity is
with
different.
you saying that, what came to mind is that like women don't have an off switch.
Right. Right.
That's what
Well,
it made me think about.
I always joke, and this rings true in my world, is, there's all these memes out there that say like women say things, or they use, I don't know, like 2,000 more words than men do a day. And,
Hmm.
like it's true, right? We talk more, we share more, we think more. And so we
Yeah.
don't necessarily have an off switch.
Yeah, it's like having that background noise in your mind like 24/7, right?
Yeah, it's
Whereas the
real.
guys can
Mental
just
load
like
is real.
put it
During,
away, put it away,
yeah,
put it away until tomorrow.
yeah. Yeah, and the mental load is real. And, if we're looking at how that infiltrates into our relationships, right? And I hear this all the time, in different capacities is, I feel like I do more. I do more than my partner. I do the lion's share of everything. And it can breed resentment. And so oftentimes it's really a point of conversation in a relationship to say, how do we share that mental load? How do we
Yes.
become more of a partnership, right?
Yes.
Instead of feeling alone or in a driver's seat that you don't really want to be driving.
Absolutely. Actually, this leads really well into that second part of what we want to talk about is how that resentment actually can kill intimacy. So if this becomes something that you're bottling up, that resentment just builds up. You're feeling unappreciated. You're feeling unseen. You're feeling like I don't have a partner to lean on. Where's my helper in this? Right. And that can actually lead to detrimental relationships here. This could be like a huge elephant in the room, but I think that's talking about it is really healthy. And I think that thinking about your partner, if you're, and then this could be even like an ex-husband or anyone that is in your life, but working together as a team, I think that goes a long way.
Well, and it's one thing to just say working as a team, but it's another thing to actually identify and execute on it. So if we're talking about this invisible mental load,
Hmm.
one strategy that I work with many people on is to identify everything in that invisible, mental load. And then that allows your partner to see all the undertakings that you do. And then how can you divide and conquer so that it's a shared mental load and it's not someone just feeling that they're alone in that whole process.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, it's hard to feel close to someone when you feel alone, like you're beside them, but you feel alone. Right. So yeah, the emotional withdrawal, and then maybe like that could, if this is left, like things are left unsaid, you're kind of like keeping score, or there's
Right.
passive aggressive
Oh, there's a
comments
lot of
that,
keeping score.
right. Yeah. Well, I did
Right.
this and you
I
didn't do that. And like, yeah, it can get
And to
very
your point about it,
juvenile.
right, and to your point about it being a hindrance on intimacy, that's a real situation, and it's very normal in relationships where one person isn't feeling connected to the other person because they're not feeling seen or helped or heard. Or if we talk about love languages, there's like the less active service that's taking place, and so they do pull back because that lack of connection. And creating intimacy can be a challenge. So, it's important that partners show up for each other, sharing that mental load.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And also
Um,
a function of co-parenting, like you mentioned, right? If you have an ex or you're a widower or a widow, right? It can be a very overwhelming place to be the one carrying that mental load alone.
mhm. Absolutely. Well, even just as a single mom, I manage a lot, right? I'm running my own business. I'm taking care of my daughter. I prioritize my health. Like I do everything. And my friends will say to me all the time, like, I don't know how you do it. I just don't know how you do it. But for me, it's like, okay, yes, I do probably have a heavier mental load than, say someone else who doesn't have a child, or, they have a partner that they can lean on for a lot of things. But what I say is like, you just figure it out.
Right.
You
I
just
think
do it.
there's also one thing we often overlook in society from a male perspective, and I do hear this, so I want to share the other side of this, is
Yeah.
the male perspective is it's a different mental load. I carry a mental load of making sure I'm providing for my family, that I'm showing up every day for my family, that I'm spending time with my wife or my children or my partner. It depends on how that is, but the mental load can look different for different people. So if we're really talking about, you know, relationships and that invisible mental load, I think it boils down to communication and each of you sharing how you're feeling, and where this stress point of your own mental load is showing up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the communication part is key. So this actually leads really well into the last part that I want to talk about, which are strategies to help balance and set boundaries, because I think that that is a huge player here. Knowing how to set that boundaries and leaning on people, asking for help, doing check-ins, like whether it's weekly check-ins, like on a date night, or you have that kind of built up
Yeah.
into your schedule, I think is a really great strategy for couples to try. And also just, whether you're putting this on a chart, like dividing up certain responsibilities so you feel like there's an even split in terms of, like, the mental load and the actual responsibilities. And again, like, yeah, just sharing, being vulnerable, asking for
But
help.
if we're also talking about strategies, I think one of the biggest strategies that, can come with a lot of guilt is self-care, right? And
Hmm.
making sure that
Oh
you're
yeah.
also taking care of yourself, in the process of carrying this mental load. And then again, communication. So, sometimes it's best to write everything down because you can see it, right? When you just carry everything up here in the cognitive perspective, it's harder to acknowledge and identify. But if you take a few minutes to breathe and then write everything down, and write everything down from what the mental load looks like, write everything down to the things you do like doing versus the things you don't like doing. And then having a collective conversation, if you have a partner, with that person, to say, hey, how can we balance this out a little bit? But then also, these are the things that are important for me from a self care perspective. So, how do I implement those, and what time can I find to make sure that I'm taking care of myself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like both parties making sure they have time to go work out, for example, or if going for a massage or nail appointment is important to you, allocating time for that, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And also, I just want to kind of throw out there, because I always call myself a recovering perfectionist, is that things don't have to be done perfect. Like they don't have to be done your way to get done. It can get done another way. You also have to be flexible and
Yes.
understand, like, they may not load the dishwasher exactly the way that you
That's a
do.
whole control piece.
Right? But there's a part of that where it's like just like letting go and being able to be flexible and like accept the help. Like that goes a long way as well.
And actually, another strategy, if you're depending on your kids at age and stage, right,
Yes.
getting them involved in carrying some of the mental load, like, having them call a doctor's office to decide what works within their schedule, having them empty the dishwasher or load the dishwasher, right? Again, age
Yeah.
appropriate, getting them to help
Yes.
with doing their laundry, folding and putting away their clothes. There's so many ways that, we often feel we have to do it all, and that saying, it takes a village, is
Hmm.
so accurate. So
Yeah.
there's no shame in that. There's no shame in saying, hey, I'm going to get you to do this, or I'm going to piecemeal that out, or, I'm going to even order food tonight because I just can't cook.
Yeah, exactly. But I think these are important skills, especially as parents, that we can teach our kids. I'm already doing this with my daughter, like she wants to, mommy, I want to make my sandwich. No problem. Let's go. And I just guide her along and she's doing her thing. I'm like, why not? she's capable, and if she's showing a willingness to help, I'm not going to take that away from her.
Yeah. And in my household, I use it as a way to teach financial literacy as well. So, right, with every
Beautiful.
chart comes your allowance money type of thing, and everything has a breakdown. And, if you don't do it, you don't get paid. So, there's
Yes.
ways of incorporating other elements too into sharing the mental load.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. I would say that mental load is more of a relationship issue than a personal failure, right? And it's just learning those skills that you can implement into your relationship to be heard, to come to to be on the same page about everything, communicate what your needs are. And I'm pretty sure that with open communication, you can come to some common ground and you can start to feel a lot lighter and take some of that mental load off your plate, because 9 times out of 10, your partner, whoever you're interacting with, is going to want to help you.
And ultimately, better connection.
Better
Always.
connection. Exactly. No resentment. Amazing. All right. So balance doesn't come from doing less, it comes from not doing it alone. We will end there. I think that is so, so powerful and a great takeaway for today's podcast. We want to thank you for being here. We appreciate you listening and watching. And as always, you can reach out to us and let us know if you have any topic ideas or any feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And we will sign off.
Until next time.
Until next time. Awesome. All right. Take
Take
care.